Welcome to Relation Tales. Please like this video and subscribe Relation Tales. My wife and I both work at the same place, a marketing firm. Lucy works with customers, but I'm not sure what exactly she does besides being friendly with them. I'm Mark, and I'm in charge of the team. Everything was good for us. We had jobs, a nice home after renovating it, and two great kids, Emma, who's 13, and Daniel, who's 11. We live near our families and have good friends. We're both in our 30s and get along well, even though we look different. Lucy is tall, with long blonde hair and blue eyes. She says her family is from Sweden, and she looks Scandinavian. She's slim, energetic, and always moving. I'm the same height as her with sandy hair. I like sports like cycling and running, so I'm fit but not super muscular. It was a surprise when I got invited to a long weekend on a private island owned by one of our company's clients, Jack Edwards. Our CEO explained that he and his wife, Margaret, were traveling along with several directors and their partners. Lucy was also invited as she was the client's main contact. It sounded like I was there to crunch the numbers, but hey, don't look a gift horse in the mouth. Jack explained that the client was very wealthy and could easily become our firm's largest client. We would leave early Friday morning and return on Monday on a private charter, and everything would be provided to us. Lucy knew everything when I mentioned it on the way home. She had been working with the client for several months and seemed very impressed and was looking forward to the free weekend. I asked her about the weekend, but she didn't seem to know much, so I asked her about the client. Lucy explained that his name was William Fellows and said that he was in his mid-40s, looked good, exuded self-confidence, and had inherited the family fortune. She seemed a little fascinated, describing him as bossy and reserved, among other things. I thought, he seems a bit full of himself, but I'll keep that to myself for now. 2 weeks later, on a Friday morning, we were on a private plane. I was impressed. If the island belonged to him, it must be really nice. I wasn't sure what to expect, but it looked huge, maybe 5 miles long and a couple of miles wide from what we saw as we landed. It looked like a fancy resort, with buildings behind the sandy beach shaped like a crescent. Lucy was very excited, and so were the others. We got shown our rooms and then had lunch with our host on the porch with a view of the bay. I wanted to dislike him, but William seemed okay. Lucy even said he wasn't as bad as she thought he'd be. He looked like George Clooney. He thanked us for coming and told us to make ourselves at home. We chatted with the other 3 couples from our firm and met a stunning brunette named Charlotte, who I assumed was William's weekend date. Besides the waitstaff, the only guy there who wasn't introduced to us looked like a security guard and hung around in the background. I wondered what kind of enemies William had that even on a desert island he still needed protection. William greeted Lucy like an old friend, and they felt very comfortable in each other's company. She and the others seemed to obey most of his words. I suppose this was natural since he was an unusually generous host and their most valuable client. We had a great afternoon snorkeling, kayaking, and generally lazing around in the bay. Free drinks and food were constantly offered. We enjoyed the evening dinner with all the members of the group. The atmosphere was friendly and relaxed as we chatted in small groups. Charlotte came up to us and introduced herself. She was sweet and talked about growing up in England. I got the impression that she was from a wealthy family, but she seemed genuinely nice. I wondered if she was a model or maybe she didn't need to work. To my surprise, she was quite flirty with me, even in front of Lucy. I managed to politely avoid her, simply chalking it up to being too friendly, full-time care, no children, time to relax, and an idyllic location, the perfect setting for a romantic night. Lucy was particularly loving, and her lovemaking was intense. She told me she loved me many times. It was a really good night. Maybe this Love Island thing isn't so bad. I hoped we'd have another good time in the morning, but Lucy got ready quickly for breakfast. I finally got out of bed and joined her while she was talking to Jack and William. I wondered if it was about work because they seemed a bit stressed. Maybe William was using the weekend to talk about work stuff. When I got closer, the conversation stopped. We had a quick snack, then spent another nice day by the pool with the others. On Saturday, we went out to dinner, and I noticed Lucy was dressed up more than usual. She looked amazing in a fancy red dress and high heels. After dinner, William asked if we could spare him a few minutes. We agreed and followed him into the office, followed by a security guard. William sat down in a high-backed leather chair, and I sat on the sofa opposite Lucy, noting that she sat slightly away from me. After a long pause, William spoke. "I have a proposal for you, Mark. It is personal." "Okay," I answered, trying to appear calm despite being completely stunned. William continued, "I've had the pleasure of working with Lucy and getting to know her better over the past few months, and it's been an absolute pleasure. We get on fantastically well and have built a great relationship. He paused, perhaps waiting for my reaction, but I had no idea where he was going with this, although the word relationship made me feel a little uneasy. He continued casually, as a result, I have a proposal. I would like to spend the rest of the weekend with Lucy. Of course, I will be happy to compensate for the time she would have to spend with you, and to do this, I intend to transfer $100,000 into your joint account. I laughed. It was supposed to be a joke, and I couldn't resist making one. Well, William, it looks like you're a little tight-fisted. Didn't Robert Redford offer more than £1 million for Demi Moore? Nobody laughed anymore. William continued, as in any other business, I'm willing to negotiate the price to get what I want. Also, Charlotte will be in a tough spot, and I'd appreciate it if you could keep her company. I turned to Lucy, hoping she'd smile, but she seemed worried instead. This isn't a joke, Mark, she said. William invited me to go with him, and we should really think about it seriously. I wanted to punch him, but before I could react, the guard was already nearby. I was surprised at how fast he moved. William kept talking, saying, I promise your wife is on board with this idea. What's the harm? We'll all have fun, and you'll earn a lot of money. I turned to Lucy. Maybe the difference in price is explained by the fact that Demi Moore didn't want it for that amount. Lucy flinched at this remark, but she was smart enough not to say anything. I desperately tried to think, but was forced to focus on my breathing, which was becoming increasingly labored. I looked at the guard. His demeanor had completely changed. He looked wary and focused on my movements, and with good reason, since I really wanted to punch William in his pretty face. What is your name, ex-military, judging by your appearance? Shane, sir, and I cannot comment on this matter. And if I attacked your boss, I think you could kill me with your bare hands or something. Shane smiled, maybe just to keep me from doing this, sir. Turning to William, I said, it's a good thing you brought him, otherwise I would have beaten the crap out of you. William didn't seem bothered at all. Let us not rush, Mark. A lot depends on this. Lucy spoke next. Mark, think about it. Just a couple of days and money will change our lives forever. I was devastated. She clearly planned and wanted this. Tell me, dear, did the offer of money come after you too? I asked why they decided to do this, but got no answer. So I said, I think Charlotte was offered to make the deal better. Is she a prostitute? William said, Charlotte is my friend. She's rich and a fancy escort. She only takes jobs she likes. Don't worry with her. You'll have a unique experience. I said, that still sounds like they're both prostitutes. Lucy winced again, but didn't say anything to calm me down. Well, William, I said, you can take your money and shove it. It was at this moment that Lucy spoke and showed her true colors. This is my body and I want to do this. It's just sex and we'll both be interested in exploring it with others. William and I like each other, but that's it. That doesn't change our love for each other. I'm sure you and Charlotte will have a good time too. I was stunned by her words, which slowly came to me. The difference, my dear wife, is that I don't want anyone else, and this is much more than you imagine. This is betrayal and conspiracy behind my back. I will never be able to trust you again, and if you are ready to do it once, then why not do it again? Lucy quickly said, You're overreacting. I told you about this, so it's not a secret. I'm being honest. This will happen, then I'll come back to you completely. If you love me, you'll let me do this one thing. Think about what we can do with the money, like holidays with the kids. Don't use our children as an excuse. We don't need money, and I won't take you back just because of money. You being honest only works if we agree on something together, but you only agree with this pompous guy. Money is just an excuse you want to do it. I think you only brought up money and Charlotte because you didn't think I'd agree. Well, you're right. Even with money, I still don't agree. Lucy continued, You're right. I want to do this. I want to experience something different, something new, and I am attracted to William. But this should not hurt us. I don't want to change, and you think this is better. Have you already made your choice, even dressed up for it? Don't resist, baby. You won't like the consequences. What do you mean? I asked. Well, you won't come out of this with good consequences if you fight this or go for a divorce. You will lose everything, your home, children, even your job will be in jeopardy. And there is no need for this. So just accept it. Everything will be much easier. See you tomorrow, and remember, I love you and only you. I needed to leave. Breathing was becoming a real problem, and if I stayed, I would lose it. I stood up, feeling unsteady, and staggered towards the door. I heard Lucy calling my name, but I kept walking. As I was crossing the hall, Charlotte came up to me and hugged me, saying that everything would be fine. I turned to her. Who are you? A consolation prize. She walked away with her head held high. I kept walking and eventually got outside and walked halfway across the yard, but I didn't feel very good. I heard footsteps behind me and was disappointed to see that it was Shane and not Lucy. Listen, Shane, you just need to back off. I said I would love to, but I need to make sure you don't do anything stupid. For example, do you have any ideas? Because I don't have any, Shane replied. Mark, you look sick. Just sit against the wall, bring your knees up, and take deep breaths slowly, Shane said. After a bit, I felt better. Thanks. I think it might have been an anxiety or panic attack, I said. Shane said, you looked really pale, but now you look better. Talking about bad ideas, is there a way to leave this island? I asked. Shane said, seriously, you can't leave today. There are no boats, and the plane and pilot left for another job. You might be able to radio for help, but a cheating wife is hardly an emergency. I'm glad you think she's unfaithful. She doesn't seem to understand that, and I'm already starting to doubt myself. What should I do? I asked. Because of you, I can't even beat the crap out of him, I said. Yes, sorry about that. I would like to step aside, but I will never find a job again, Shane continued. Listen, think about what you are going to do and come up with a plan. Whatever you need to do can wait until Monday. It's like in the army, form a plan, sit quietly, and don't tell them what you're going to do, Shane advised. The problem is that I have no idea what to do. They seem to have everything planned, and I will have to sit and suffer tomorrow and Monday while you babysit me, I replied. After a long pause, Shane suggested, there's a ship coming early Monday morning with cargo. You can take it if you want to avoid the plane with everyone else going home. They can't stop you. No one, including me, wants to be accused of kidnapping or imprisonment. I can even go with you. This contract is losing its attractiveness. I don't like being on the wrong side, even if it pays well. Okay, that sounds good. I just need to get through tomorrow, I said. How about we go for a hike around the island tomorrow morning to take your mind off things, Shane suggested. And you should think about Charlotte. She's a great girl, and it seems like you don't have anything to lose, he added. I'll give it a try. Who knows, maybe she'll change her mind, I replied. But she didn't change her mind as expected. Surprisingly, I fell asleep, probably because I was tired. The next morning, I quickly changed into my gym clothes and went downstairs, hoping to avoid everyone and go on my date with Shane. Unfortunately, as soon as I entered the dining room, silence reigned there. I looked for something quick to eat and grabbed some fruit. The noise of conversations was heard. I heard comments about everything being fine, no big deal. She will come back. Then CFO John Cousins came up with his wife. Look, we've all been through this. Just let it happen. It's nothing personal. He dates other wives, but then moves on, and he is very generous, he said. At that moment, Lucy and William appeared. She looked absolutely pleased with herself. I would say radiant if I had to describe it. At least she did until she noticed me. Her smile faded. She let go of that asshole's hand and came over to kiss or hug me. I pulled her away at arm's length and looked around. God, I thought, what a damn idiot. Everyone knew what would happen before the weekend even started. What an absolute fool I was. I went out. Lucy spoke. Please stay, Mark. We can chat with the group and have another good day together. I looked around. All eyes were fixed on me, some in anticipation. Others clearly amused by the scene. No, he paid for you and can keep you. But before I go, I need to tell the group something. I believe this weekend has been planned for quite some time, and you all have known about it, so it's only fair that you all hear what I have to say. All members of the group looked at each other in shock, nervously glancing at each other. Jack and Margaret, I would never have come this weekend if you weren't here. It never occurred to me that you would be involved in something so vile, and approve of what he does like some kind of fan club of sick voyeurs. I hope you enjoyed keeping me blind. I noticed how they all began to move awkwardly. This was clearly not part of their plans. I actually felt we were friends and making me feel at home, so they could arrange everything was a nice touch. And you're wrong, Bill. This is very personal, so thank you for your role in destroying my marriage. The fact that they are willing to use leverage over my children is frankly disgusting. I don't allow anyone to threaten my children. Lucy insisted, you're making too big a deal out of this? It was merely a momentary lapse, a fleeting encounter that shouldn't shake our foundation. I've already expressed my love. I interjected. Here comes the initial line of defense. Trying to downplay it, are we? I'm well aware you had a game plan for how I'd react, being the captain and all. So let's dissect what you had in mind. Phase A. We stay put, and you gradually normalize the situation before we return home. You and your friends probably talked about this seriously, preparing for it before it even happened. You're likely expecting me to swallow my pride, not overreact, and handle the situation like an adult. You think it's just about my ego and pride, right? You know it won't work, but it's part of your plan to make it easier. So, for the next step, after the weekend is over, you let me take charge. We'll be close, maybe even trying new things together. With your connections, we'll strengthen our relationship and come out stronger. You might even have plans to charm me, because, sweetheart, you can't let me feel sad for too long. Lucy looked nervous, glancing at William, showing that what I said had an impact. Additionally, we'll have access to the funds he promised you. With the earnings from your side endeavors, we can treat the kids to a Disneyland trip and meet Mickey. These words elicited visible reactions from several individuals evident from their shudders. If we are still fighting, Phase B kicks in. You already sowed the seed last night. If I really love you, then I should allow you to do this. For 15 years, you have been a wonderful wife, and this is just one night for you. Yes, this may begin to weaken my resolve, but what do I get after 15 years of devotion to you if I'm treated like crap? You knew I would never agree, and you attacked me with a complete lack of respect, so this plan won't work. Now you're a little worried. Maybe you better give me time to cool down. In a week or two, you'll find me drowning my sorrows in a bar somewhere, and then you'll ask for forgiveness. This is Phase D. You actually regret all this. You didn't realize it would hurt me so much, and you never would have done it if you had known. You love me, beg, cry, and all that. I must admit that you have a chance. But then the way you just walked hand in hand with him in front of everyone and looked so delighted with yourself, this confirmed to me that there really was no guilt or regret, only contempt and a desire to humiliate me. Phase D won't work for you. So finally, a backup plan may be needed. Phase E threats. You will take all the money in the house and set the children on me. You've already suggested that I might lose my job. William will pay to find you the best lawyers. I will end my life sad, poor, and lonely. You can even threaten to move in with him and live happily ever after with our children. William raised his head so quickly that I almost laughed. Oh God, it looks like your lover doesn't really want your children, baby. Lucy finally found her voice. It's not such a big problem, she started. Let's just relax and take some time to think, she suggested. This is Phase of Lucy. We've been through this already, I said firmly. Why don't we save time and get to the final result? I was thinking about it last night, and I think everyone, including the kids, would be better off if we got divorced. It's healthier than staying in an unhappy home. In the end, you can't be happy if you're dealing with this stuff, and I'm not happy either. You might try to keep me from seeing my kids, but you know I'm a good dad, and that's what's best for them. And they're old enough to understand. I doubt your family and friends will support you, not after they find out what you did. I don't care about money, it's always been you. Everyone sat in shocked silence, eyes wide as goldfish. Do any of your bastards have any more tips? Did I miss anything? No, don't think. Oh, and one more thing, Jack, you can shove your job up your ass. But I'll see you in court for a forced dismissal case. My job depends on the client having my wife. It seems that this is simply the reason. With that, I walked out. You could have heard a pin drop. Shane followed me as always. As we left, Shane chuckled, well done. I see that you took to heart the advice to keep the plan to yourself. I couldn't help but smile. Yes, it looks like I failed at this idea. Shane actually laughed. As we left the building, it's good that you remained a civilian. You would never have achieved success in the Army anyway. Let's go. Shane grabbed his backpack and set off at a leisurely pace up the coast. After a mile, I was having trouble keeping up with him and began to think that perhaps it was a mistake. I heard him shout something from up front about how physical torture is a great way to take your mind off mental torment. My burning muscles and lungs seemed to agree. The scenery was breathtaking and Shane was in good company. He switched from asking about me to hilarious stories from his time in the British Army. We spent several hours circling the northern part of the island, climbing along the coast. We headed to a high point in the center. I was barely out of breath when Shane suggested we jog back since it's all downhill. I could barely keep up with him, but I suspected he was slowing down to either support me or torment me, depending on your point of view. We returned at noon. I was panting and exhausted, telling Shane that until today I thought I was in shape. He was hardly out of breath, but was kind enough to say that I was pretty fit, and that it wouldn't make me feel too bad since he was a physical education instructor in the Army. I staggered to my room. Lucy was not there, and I wondered if my wife was earning an extra fee. I showered and, finding myself very hungry, headed to the dining room to find some food, but was again disappointed to find William and Lucy there. Shane was also there, hanging out in the background, and I wondered how he managed it. He looked fresh as a daisy and fully dressed in a suit. William began to speak with his usual airy confidence, and I want to apologize. I've never had problems like this with my relationships before, and I certainly don't want to jeopardize your marriage. It's too late, you've already done it, I replied. I want to withdraw my request to spend this evening with your wife and increase the compensation." With these words, William handed me a piece of paper. I opened it and saw a check for $250,000. I stared at Lucy, who looked like she was crying, and I couldn't help myself. "You must have been pretty good to earn that much, baby." Lucy's eyes flashed with anger. "That's not the point. We made a terrible mistake, and we're trying to correct it." William was the perfect gentleman and was genuinely concerned about how you reacted. I laughed at this statement. "What is your idea of an ideal gentleman? Did he say thank you after he finished having sex with you?" "There's no need to joke, Mark. This is just a miscalculation on her part. We miscalculated your reaction to what was happening. It was a once-in-a-lifetime experience for both of us. You should thank Lucy for giving up things to give you and the kids a better life. Just a mistake." "I don't think so. I told you what I thought about your plan, but you went ahead anyway. You could have stopped it at any time, but you only stopped after you got what you wanted. You planned this too. So I tore up the check. I saved you from being tricked. The only thing left is the cheating, but I don't know if I can fix that this time." Lucy started crying right away. I turned to fellows. "Why are you doing this? Control or the thrill of having someone else's wife? Either way, it makes you a very sad bastard. Lord, how old are you? 48 years old, and you act like a child stealing toys just because you can. Don't you have anything more meaningful to focus on?" William laughed in response. "I run an international corporation and give millions to charity. I have something to focus on. According to the research I did last night, you inherited this corporation, and under your management, it is shrinking. When it comes to charities, attending galas, dinners, and fundraisers must be difficult. When was the last time you did something yourself, got your hands dirty, and actually helped another person? I doubt you have it in you. You're so self-absorbed and too busy playing games with people's lives. Judging by the way you planned this weekend for everyone to know, you must be turned on by humiliating others. Sorry, Lucy, but it wasn't just because he wanted you. He wants every board member's wife, so you're one of many. Why don't you, William, try to grow up, have a real relationship with someone, put some of your wealth to good use, and stop being a complete?" For the first time, I saw him stumble over his words and look unsure of himself. I told Shane, "You better get rid of that junk before I lose my temper with you." I saw Shane smirk a bit before telling his buddies, "I think it's time for us to go, sir, before things get unsafe for you." After they left, I grabbed a snack and headed to the beach, trying to avoid everyone else. Just when I thought I was alone, I saw Charlotte relaxing in a hammock reading. If she was pretty before, when she smiled, she looked even more beautiful. I went over to her and said, "Sorry about last night." But before I could say more, she said, "It's okay. I thought you'd say yes to the offer. If I knew you wouldn't, I wouldn't have asked. Your reaction is totally fine, and your speech at breakfast was really good." I couldn't agree more. When you left, Lucy burst into tears, and I've never seen William look so embarrassed. I loved every minute. "Oh, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that considering what you're dealing with," I answered. "Thank you. Good. I'm even glad that something is starting to become clearer. I'm already tired of being told that this is nonsense. You see, William has no idea what to do with you. He had never been rejected before and was not used to dealing with morals. Has he already offered you more money?" "Yes, just before it came down. $250,000. Damn idiot. I told him not to do it, but he's used to paying enough until he gets what he wants. He will pay for this both in business and personally." Charlotte was easy to talk to, and she listened intently as I talked about my marriage and children. She was clearly intelligent and highly educated. She expressed surprise that Lucy would do this while on a seemingly happy marriage, suggesting that there had been some kind of unhappiness or open marriage arrangement between us. I thought about it. No, it's just an unexpected ambush. She seems to be completely fascinated by this guy. He can have that effect on a woman. It's all very charming, but the river isn't that deep, if you know what I mean. We talked some more, and I felt a little better. "I think you really love her." "Your reaction to the proposals and at breakfast must be breaking your heart," she said. I shrugged. "I'm sorry that I took part in this. It's not your fault. I just need to survive one more night, and then maybe I can escape." She smiled again, and it was starting to distract. "Well, maybe I can help with this." Everyone was surprised when I came to dinner. Lucy no longer sat next to William. Dinner was quite normal, although I ignored Lucy's attempts at small talk. When Lucy asked if I wanted to go to bed early, I smiled and said I had other plans. She seemed embarrassed, especially when Charlotte hugged me as I got up. We left the room together and walked down to the cabins by the beach. The original plan was just to leave together and show Lucy how it feels, but holding Charlotte felt nice. Really nice. And when we kissed, it made some of the disappointment from the past day go away. I thought about sticking to my morals, what I believed was right and wrong, but then I looked at Charlotte. I guess Lucy wanted me to be more open-minded, and as far as I'm concerned, Lucy already broke our marriage vows. I had an outstanding night with Charlotte. It wasn't just her beauty. She had a serene sexiness. Every move seemed so precise and perfectly timed. She truly was a master of her craft. Surprising myself, I didn't think about Lucy and didn't feel guilty. The painful memory of Lucy with William easily eliminated any hint of remorse. I had a good time. Boat taxi to the airport and then the usual flight home. I picked up the kids and made arrangements for their weekend as best I could. I made up a story about having a fight with their mother, but I said we'd fix things. I suggested dinner when Lucy came in with our heavy suitcase. The kids ran upstairs, saying hi to their mom. Lucy smiled and said dinner was a good idea. She wanted a few minutes to get ready, but I said I'd rather go alone with them, like she suggested before. When I met William, I felt a connection right away. He seemed charming and strong, like a character from an old movie. But later, when Mark was around, he was different. We flirted, had lunch and dinner together. It was exciting, but I didn't want to cheat, so I told him. William talked about open relationships, and I wondered if Mark would be okay with it. When he offered, I thought the money made it okay. Jack agreed, and we started planning for the weekend. The weekend started out brilliantly. I had a great time with Mark and almost gave up on the whole thing if only I could. William said that everything would be fine and that he should relax. Both he and Jack said to expect Mark to reject the idea, but to give him time to calm down. Mark reacted completely differently than we expected and planned. The biggest shock was that he actually looked unwell. I wanted to run after him, but William assured me that everything would be fine. He asked Charlotte to meet him, so when he didn't return, I thought he was staying with her. I was relieved, and after months of waiting, I was desperate to spend time with William. As soon as he kissed me, I realized that I would succeed. He led me into his bedroom, and before I could take off my clothes, I was already excited with anticipation. William stood in front of me and undressed me as if I were the most delicate trophy. I felt so special. Despite his age, he was incredibly fit. I was not disappointed by his body or his manhood below the waist. When I reached out to him, William pulled away and started kissing my whole body, kissing me everywhere. Slowly, he gauged my reaction and responded, seemingly in sync with everything I wanted and needed. My first climax came quickly, caused by his skillful caresses. He stood up and began to kiss me passionately. He was a skilled lover. I was stunned by the sensations that washed over my body. Now I was completely captured by desire. He increased the pace and began to take me hard. As the next climax approached, William followed me. Finally, we both relaxed in each other's arms. I woke up in the middle of the night confused, believing I was sleeping with Mark in shock to find another man lying next to me. I felt guilty, wondering where Mark was and how he was feeling. I must have disturbed William because he woke up and kissed me, and my guilt was soon forgotten when he climbed on top of me again. This morning, I was brushing my teeth when William came up behind me. He seemed insatiable. We got back on the bed and held hands. Then I pushed him onto his back and sat on top of him. I was happy to see desire and happiness on his face. It matched with our big moment. It was just like I wanted, and I was really happy. I kissed William and thanked him for the great night. It felt right to hold his hand as we went downstairs to the dining room. I was excited for another night. But then I looked at Mark and everything fell apart. I felt scared when Mark got really angry. Everything seemed to go wrong. It was clear he hadn't slept with Charlotte, even without that. I thought that he would leave, but I did not expect such anger. What scared me most was his cold rage. Mark was too logical in everything. He anticipated almost all of my well-developed arguments when I brought them supported by William. They sounded much more convincing. But Mark crushed them all in 5 minutes, making them sound weak and pathetic even to me. I tried my best to hold my position, but I realized that I was losing. After he left, I collapsed, sobbing hysterically. William looked unsure for the first time. When I came to my senses, I tried to find him, but I couldn't. Jack and William then proposed the idea of stopping everything by offering more money. When we offered Mark more money later that day, I was amazed at how things turned out. William's presence had diminished so much that he truly seemed small and insignificant. Before that, his authority was such that I believed everything he said, but now this authority was undermined to the limit. He assured me that we could have fun without ruining my marriage. This plan crumbled into dust, and I was no longer sure of anything. I then flew into an irrational rage, assuming that I would stay on the island longer and have fun, but was surprised by Jack's calm but cruel response. "Don't be so damn stupid, Lucy. If you want to have even the slightest chance of saving your marriage, ask for forgiveness. You better be honest and serious in what you say." He doesn't seem like a man who's willing to change his mind. Personally, I can't argue with anything he said at breakfast. I was even more shocked when Jack told William that they would never have the same things again. He continued by saying that Mark was a decent guy and didn't deserve any of the crap we caused, and William should take his advice and think about growing up. I was amazed that Mark was present at the evening dinner. I tried to talk to him, but he simply ignored me. When he left with Charlotte, I was devastated. I was going to run after him, but what could I say because I basically told him to do it and spent most of the trip justifying meaningless sex. I felt really mad and hurt. Then I remembered I did similar things with Mark before, but what made it worse was that it was all planned out and everyone knew. I guess I deserve it in a way. Maybe if we both cheat, it'll help us stay together. The plane ride back without Mark made me realize how bad things were in our marriage. He found a way to leave the island before us. After that, I didn't really talk to him properly. I started to feel really guilty about what I did. I tried to focus on the money. Who would say no to that much? I couldn't stop crying, and I felt like I was losing control. Jack and Margaret were worried about me. When I got home, Mark was there, but he didn't want me to have dinner with him and the kids. I almost managed to hold out until they left, and then I burst into tears again. Exclusion from the meal seemed to be an ominous prelude to my future life. When I came to my senses, I desperately tried to think of what to say when Mark returned. The problem was that everything sounded like what he had already said, and I was embarrassed to ask my mother or friends for advice. When we finally got home, the kids went straight to their bedrooms as usual, burying their heads in video games and phones. I stood and looked at Lucy in the kitchen. She seemed completely unfamiliar to me. She almost whispered, "Can we talk? I mean, properly." I shrugged, thinking that we should figure this out eventually, so why drag it out? "I'm sorry, Mark. I promise you that it was just one time, and I will be yours and as faithful as before the weekend. I did it for the money. It could be life-changing for us as a family. I did it for us. You did it for yourself. We were fine and money wasn't a problem. You couldn't wait to jump into his bed. You must have been in for a fancy dinner and sex overall. Everyone had a good time. You were overreacting. It shouldn't mean anything. You really should skip phase at Lucy. And you know it. This wasn't casual sex. It was a planned betrayal. Arrogant, selfish, all those traits that I hate. And now I hate you very much." "So you did the same thing back to me?" "No, I didn't. I got back at you because nothing else seemed to make you understand. You were too wrapped up in yourself to see how it hurt me. I wouldn't have even thought about it if I had a loyal wife. And I hope it hurts. Really hurts, so you can understand how I feel. But I didn't plan it all out like you did, making myself look stupid. By the way, how long did you plan this, and was it your first time with him?" Her eyes got big at this, but then she realized it was a fair question. "It was the first time we had dinner, and I knew he liked me. I think Jack and Margaret were feeling me out, asking if I was interested. The four of us were having dinner, and for the first time in my marriage, I found myself aroused by another man. His confidence was intoxicating. I knew it was wrong, and I resisted with all my might and managed not to have an affair. Then William suggested the idea of asking you about opening up our relationship and what you thought about changing. We talked about this briefly one evening, but it was clear that you would not agree to this. Then he came up with the idea for this proposal, and I thought that the money would make it all worth it for you. We were nervous as the trip got closer, and he suggested inviting Charlotte to ensure that you would agree. I didn't like the idea, but by then I just wanted it to happen. I thought that even if you didn't entirely approve of this, we would recover. Then you so effectively destroyed all these ideas at breakfast, and I began to realize the consequences of what I had done. Was it worth it? No, of course not. I was so carried away by him and listened to what he said. I never meant to hurt you. Oh, then straight to phase D, unintentional pain. You were enjoying this. It was clear enough from the way you were flying around during breakfast. Now you're just telling me what I need to hear. Sorry, the honest answer is yes, I liked it. He was good. It's not bigger or better, it's just different. It was exciting, new exciting, and I was fascinated by it. He is very experienced and knows what he is doing. But this was the only time. Please don't abandon us and break up our family because of a one-time incident. I found myself smiling wryly. It's funny, but that's exactly how I would describe what you've already done, destroyed our family because of a one-time act. It's all on you, not me. You're right. It's all my fault. I'm so sorry. I love you with all my heart. Well, not with all your heart. You gave part of it to him. And even if you claim that you didn't, your love still wasn't enough to keep me faithful. How can I trust you again? I was so trusting because it never occurred to me that you were capable of what you did. I think I don't really know you. I can hardly bring myself to look at you, let alone pretend this didn't happen. Lucy recoiled in shock. You can't say that you love me. I know I never thought that I could lose you. I agree. You only thought about yourself and your ass, and not about me and the children. But sometimes love is not enough. I tried to calm down and move away from gaining points in the argument and anger. After a long pause, I continued, listen, Lucy. Even if we try to stay together and forget about what happened, things won't be the same. You broke the trust and love we had for each other. Remember, we cared about each other and the kids more than anything. We didn't want to hurt anyone else. I never thought you could hurt me like this, Mark. I love you. I messed up and I'll do anything to make it right. But that doesn't mean we should get divorced just because you want it. You broke my heart and threatened me. You don't do that to someone you really love. Lucy stared in silence, stunned, not knowing what else to say. We need to talk about the children. I think that children are better off in separated families than in dysfunctional ones, so from this point of view, the best option is divorce. I agree that you will win custody, but don't try to stop me from seeing them. It will be better for you too. They are listening to me. You are not very good at setting boundaries. I frown at the irony of that comment, and they are already testing you. It will be better for you and for them if I remain in their lives. Lucy shrugged seriously. Lucy, no matter what happens, don't stop me from seeing our children. Don't alienate me. I am not a bad guy. I treat them well and love them to bits. You haven't seen how angry I am yet. I will fight you to the end, spend all our money on lawyers, and we will destroy each other in the process. I warned her. She nodded. I would never do that. You are a great father, and they need you. They will want you to continue to take them with you on trips and practice with them in all sports sections, she said. I turned and looked at her, surprised by the first comment in which I felt that she was not trying to manipulate me or justify her actions. Be careful, Lucy. You're throwing off Phase D seriously, even though you know who I am. Why do this? I can only think that deep down you wanted us to break up. God, never, Lucy said urgently. There is no excuse for this. I became selfish, convinced myself that I could get something more. It seemed to me that somehow I could hold you. Why didn't you stop me that night and just go? I felt suffocated and had to leave. After that, it didn't seem to matter much anymore. Knowing you wanted another guy at any cost meant I had already lost you. This conversation ended us long before you went to his bed. Maybe it was over when you started planning everything. You spent weeks talking to him and getting ready. Letting you go without stopping you makes it easier to end things. There's no going back, and that was the start of the end. Our marriage was ruined in less than 4 days. We divorced, fortunately without any need for counseling. I think Lucy didn't want to explain her actions. On the one hand, it's a shame. I was hoping someone qualified could show how wrong she was. She did keep one promise. And in the end, we spent approximately equal amounts of time with the children. She even admitted to them that everything was her fault without going into details. They were old enough to understand and often decided for themselves where to stay. They were at that age when parents became famous taxi drivers and loan sharks. I'm biased, but I think they are great kids and handled the breakup very well. Children can be surprisingly resilient. Under the terms of the divorce, Lucy could keep our house until the children were of age and then sell or buy it. But I still wanted this for the children, and it allowed them to attend the same school. Fortunately, the right decision paid off. By the time the children went to college, real estate prices had skyrocketed. Lucy had to buy the share from me, and it was the best investment of my life. How could she afford this? Well, we kept Tyler $250,000 and divided it up in the divorce. And just like with Charlotte, I couldn't hold myself to the moral high ground. What can I say? I am a practical person. Either way, it felt like a small thing to do compared to what I lost in my marriage and the life I used to have. I quit my job, got some money to avoid trouble, and started my own web design business. Lucy tried to get us back together, but I wasn't interested. So, was it right to end things? It was messy, and nobody really won, but the bad things I thought would happen didn't. I wasn't going to forget or forgive what happened that night. It's important to be able to look at yourself in the mirror and like who you see. Second story, wife still talking to her ex. What should I do? My wife, 35, has been occasionally in contact with her ex behind my back for about 7 years now. We have 3 children, and the oldest is 7. When she was pregnant with our first, her ex reached out to her and told her he was still madly in love with her. And she told me this then, so I said she needed to never talk with him again. I had a bad feeling recently and looked at her phone and saw she has been in contact with him for the past 7 years behind my back after I told her she couldn't talk to him anymore. I don't believe they have hooked up, but the text messages were very flirtatious, and she has been telling him that she will always love him because he was her first true love, and they were kind of talking bad about me in the text. Her ex is a really good athlete and is about 6'5", and she has told me he is hung like a horse. In the messages, he made some remarks about my height. I'm only 5'7", and she laughed and said, "Tell me about it. I went from 6'5" to 5'7". She also asked him for advice about sports for our son, and he said, "Too bad his dad isn't an athletic stud like me," to which she laughed and said, "Could have been you. If you didn't run off with that other girl. He broke up with my wife for another girl." These are just a couple of examples. These texts were only a few conversations every year, but it really bothers me that she has been lying to me about being in contact with him all this time and how she was basically putting me down to her ex. I'm having a really hard time with it. It has made me extremely self-conscious, knowing that she basically thinks of me as a little unathletic guy. I confronted her, and at first she freaked out and said that I wasn't supposed to see those conversations. She has since apologized and promised to never speak to him again, or I told her it would end our marriage. She sent him a text in front of me saying that I saw the text and they should never speak again, but I can't stop thinking about her emasculating me to her ex. I am kind of obsessing over it. Any advice would be great. Thanks. Thanks for joining us on this chapter of Relation Tales. If you are moved by these stories, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Don't miss out on the upcoming emotional roller coaster of relationships. Your support means the world, and we can't wait to share more compelling tales with you. Until next time, remember, every relationship has a story worth telling. See you soon.